Welcome YouTube friends and family to today's edition of the Wellness Homesteader, where we're going to be making something that I've never made before. So hopefully it will come out well. I want to say before I even tell you what we're doing, you probably saw it in the thumbnail, this is not a political video. And if you're in the US, you know the poll results are in, and you'll be seeing this on Thursday. It's actually Wednesday here. But I would ask you to do me a favor, please. Please do not post anything or comment anything political. Don't use candidates' names. None of that, please, because YouTube does not like that. And it will cause my video to be demonetized, which I put a lot of work into doing videos. This is kind of going to be an all-day project, but I haven't told you what I'm going to do yet. So thank you ahead of time for your cooperation. So what are we going to make? Well, you're going to have to stay tuned to find out. We are going to be making a very historical cake. And you're like, cake? Kym, you're diabetic. Why are you making cake? Well, I'm going to share it with friends and neighbors. Am I going to have a small piece? I am. I want to taste it. I want to try it because I don't ever like farm out things that I'm not sure how they will taste, and having never made this before, I think I better taste it. So today is a very, very rainy, overcast, gloomy day. Perfect day to stay inside and bake. The girly girls are not very happy, but they'll get over it, right? Lots and lots of leaves coming down in the wind and the rain. So what we're making today is called election cake. And this is traced back as far as late 1600s, as far as I saw. It's a colonial cake, and it was prepared not for a presidential type election. It was prepared when the colonies elected their governor. So it was actually prepared in April of each year. And they had a big party, but because the colony people eschewed, wow, fancy words, they didn't adhere to all of the holidays, considering them pagan, because they had a very stout religious viewpoint. And you're going to find it funny when you find out what the ingredients are. They used this as an opportunity to really celebrate. So the original recipe, and I found out about this cake, guys, it's all over the internet. So I will leave a link to the recipe in the description box because it is copyrighted. I got it from the New York Times, but how I came up with this idea was I like to watch Tasting History with Max. I think his last name is Miller. He's a really cute feller he's got those caudal blue eyes, you know, but he does all kinds of historical sandwiches and foods. He's very interesting. Some of the things he makes I wouldn't make, but it popped up on my subscription list, and I thought, what on earth is election cake? So the original recipe, y'all, called for 30 quarts of flour. I'm just gonna leave it there because that kind of gives you an idea how huge this cake was. And it also has alcohol in it. Now, I'm not gonna make that judgment for you. For me, I'm not gonna use any alcohol. Don't keep alcohol, so I don't have it. But I know some good workarounds. I did do a little searching on the internet to see what I could find, and I will tell you, whew, it's hot in here, y'all. There's as many versions of this as Carter's has little pills, and if you're not old enough to know what that means, well, you're younger than me. So it is going to be baked, unlike Tasting History did. It's going to be baked in a very clangy pan. Y'all, if you're listening with the earphones, I try not to clink, but sometimes I do. So I actually bought a new bundt pan, because the bundt pan I was using was from 1981, and I really felt like everything stuck to it and the finish was starting to deteriorate. So I really wasn't too sure how safe or even what the finish was made of. So the very first thing that you need to do is you need to generously butter. And believe me, I'm gonna generously do it. Sometimes I will use like a baggie if I have them. I don't happen to have any little baggies. Sometimes I use saran wrap or Glad press and seal. But you do, if you're using a fluted or shaped pan, you want to make sure to get in all those crevices for the best turnout of your cake. Watch it stick, right? So I also wanted to tell you all, after my Tuesday video, and thank you all for all you share and your well wishes and your thoughts and your prayers, I did contact my doctor, of course. And being a nurse, I know what SOP is, standard operating procedure, would be for someone on blood pressure medication whose blood pressure dropped out that much. There are several medications that, if the vital signs like your pulse, etc., don't support that you need it, you as the nurse would hold it and notify the doctor. I know 100% what she would say to me. Have I heard back from her, you ask? Why, no, I have not. So, I got a message that said, please allow up to 72 hours. And if you try to call or whatsoever, they're like, well, you need to go to the emergency room. Or I'm not going to the emergency room, I'm fine. That's the way nurses are. I'm fine. Rub a little dirt in it, walk it off, right? And I am still buttering this pan, in case you're wondering what I'm doing down here. I'll show you when I get it done how generous I was. So, held it the first day. Blood pressure was even lower. Held it the second day. About the same. It was 1 point lower, but you know, that can simply be just machine differences, right? And I'm not in danger of like dying, but what I can tell you is I feel very fatigued. I'm a little bit short of breath. I have to lay down a lot. I can just tell. When I first started on blood pressure medication, I had a lot of those feelings, y'all. I kept saying, how long does this take until you don't feel like you're dying? Because when your blood pressure lowers, of course you're going to feel differently. Excuse me. Oh, my goodness. So, clunk. From my highest, my blood pressure is over 100 points lower. That's significant enough. I would expect these symptoms. I'm not surprised. I don't think I'm in danger. So I should hear from them today. I know first part of the week and the very last part of the week are extremely busy, so I'm hoping I will hear today. Okay, so this is what my pan looks like. See all the greasy butter? And then let me just kind of go over some of the ingredients with you. I will share the recipe out loud and the link. So you're going to need a stick of butter, 4 cups of flour, a cup of dark brown sugar. Y'all, I don't have dark brown sugar, so we're going to use light. A cup of whole milk. I don't have whole milk. I have half and half, so I'm going to water that down. 2 envelopes of active dry yeast, which is 4.5 teaspoons. A lemon. Don't have lemons, but we're going to work around that. 2 large eggs, nutmeg, salt, brandy. We're going to use something different. Raisins, cranberries. I don't have cranberries, but I do have some. Zante currants, so we're going to use that instead. Or you can use all raisins. Vanilla, cinnamon, ginger, allspice, clove. So let me pause just a minute here. I need to go blow my nose and wash my hands, but I'll be right back with you. Now, since I've not made this before, I could use artificial brown sugar, which is Splenda brown sugar. It does have still some sweetener in it. And the other one is Truvia, which I will not use because it is, I'm going to have to look it up. the artificial sweetener can raise blood pressure. Actually, maybe I should change that. Okay, guys, enough. So, first thing we're going to do is measure out our milk. And it says in a small pot, warm it over medium heat. I ain't dirty in the pot, y'all. I don't have any milk. I do have almond milk, but what I'm going to do is use half and half for half and fill the rest with water. So, milk. And y'all, this printed off weird. I apologize. Where's the milk? Butter, flour, no. Oh, cup. Okay. I must be living right, because that's actually right on the nose for half a cup. I'm just going to use some water for the rest of it, and this should approximate our milk. And you know, I'm pretty sure for most of these type recipes, they're going to give you what's going to produce a very rich and delicious cake without a lot of thought to the nutritional content, unless it's a nutritional type or diabetes type website. So it says, or you can microwave it for 30 seconds. That works for me. So let's pop it in here. Now, we're going to put this in, and I'll flip you around, a stand mixer. I watched a few videos, and some people were just doing it in a bowl with a hand mixer, so I'm sure you could do that as well. So let's grab our yeast. So this is quite an unusual recipe. I have never made a yeast bake cake. Now, some of the recipes I saw even use sourdough starter. So if you're interested in that, just Google it. All right, let's see where we are. And y'all, if you don't have one of these infrared thermometers, okay, I could use 10 more seconds. They are amazing. Let's do 8 seconds. Not hot enough is okay, too hot is not good. So we'll put that into our stand mixer and add our yeast. Okay, that feels a little more like it. The bowl being like a, y'all, let me stir this a little bit. Sometimes when you microwave things, let me get this to the right temperature. I'll bring you back around to the mixer. Stay tuned. Try is the charm. So, if you buy your yeast in packets, then it would be 2 packets. I always buy my yeast in bulk. So, there we go. We need, I believe it's 4.5 teaspoons. Yes, 4.5 teaspoons. And we're going to let that sit. Actually, that's a tablespoon, a teaspoon, and a half teaspoon. We're going to let that sit and bloom, if you will, for a little bit of time, however long it takes. It's not real cold in my house today. That's some kind of miracle. 72 degrees, if you see me sweating. Oops, sorry, y'all. That's why. I'm always too warm. Almost always too warm. Not always. All right. So there we have our 4.5 teaspoons. And then I'm going to take my spatula. Now, I got that. Where to put, oh, gosh. Struggle bus. I'm going to stir that up real good. And it says, let's sit until foamy. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring the camera over here so you can actually see in the bowl. Not that y'all don't know how to measure, but if you want to know what the yeast looks like when it's foamy, that should be a help to you. So I'll be back in 5. Okay, y'all, I got some nice, bubbly yeast and milk mixture. So let's move on with the recipe. It is a lot of steps, but I think it's just fine. So it says, next, zest the lemon over the mixture. I'm not going to use the lemon because I don't have it. You could use orange. I'm going to add orange extract later on. And it says add 2 eggs, nutmeg, and salt. So let's do that part first. So here's my 2 eggs with a clang. Y'all, do you like nutmeg? I absolutely despise nutmeg. So that's not going to be part of mine. Let me scoot you back just a little tad. Okay, so next I'm going to add the salt, which is, again, I printed this kind of oddly. And it was only a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. It says 2 teaspoons of salt. And I am just using Redmond's real salt. Seems like a lot of salt. But again, I've not made this recipe, so here we go. 1. Because to me, Redmond is a saltier salt, and I am going to use salted butter too. I am going to go a little bit scant, but it should still be fine. Then it says the remaining flour. So for flour, it is 4 cups of flour minus a tablespoon. I may have to just go, 4 cups of flour and take out a tablespoon. So because it is so humid in here today, it might be a bit much to think that 4 cups of flour is going to do it. It may take a little bit more to make the dough come together, but we're going to try it just as it says. So here is 1/2 1. It smells amazing. You can really smell the yeast. Seems like I'm making bread. 1 1/2. 2. 2 1/2. It's definitely a thick dough, which was one of the things. Oh Lord, hang on now, I gotta go back and rewind. I hear y'all yelling, you only were to 3. So let's do 3 1/2. And I'm gonna do 4, but I'm going to take a tablespoon out. And we're gonna put that just aside in a little dish. Let's take out our tablespoon-ish. And that will be 4. Now, I did not add the nutmeg, as I said, or the lemon zest, so this is going to be super bland. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and add a little bit of cinnamon, even though we're going to add some later. So here we go. All right, we just need to add our brown sugar, which is a cup of packed brown sugar. So let me get that ready. I'll be right back. Just to recap. So what have we put in here thus far, and where are we? So we have our 4 cups minus a tablespoon of all-purpose flour. We have our cup of packed brown sugar minus a teaspoon, a cup of whole milk or the equivalent, 4 1/2 teaspoons or 2 envelopes of active dry yeast. The lemon we didn't use, 2 large eggs, and the nutmeg, which we substituted the cinnamon, and 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, it says fit the mixer with the dough hook and knead on low till a smooth dough forms about 3 minutes. So I'm gonna have to grab the dough hook, and then you wanna cover it with a towel and let it rise 1 hour. So, as I said, it's a good day to do it because it's kind of ooky outside. I got a whole mess of stuff going on over here. I'm gonna clean up a little bit while our dough rises. I will bring you back just briefly to show you that the dough is not so shaggy, if you will, that it's a little smoother after it's kneaded and the gluten and the flour and the yeast all comes together. So I'll see you in a few. All right, y'all. As you see, our dough here is very smooth, very elastic, like a bread dough. And next it says, scrape down the bowl and add the butter all at once. So it's 8 tablespoons, 1 stick. Knead on low until the butter is incorporated and the dough is smooth, sticky, and elastic, about 6 minutes. I almost skipped that step. So I have my butter all ready here and we're gonna get back on it. Just a reminder, y'all, if you have a KitchenAid and when you're using the dough hook, you're never supposed to turn your speed over here above a 2. Yeah, need to clean everything. All right. We have a very sticky, very elastic dough, but I have higher hopes for it because it kind of reminds me of a thick fruitcake batter. I'm gonna cover it with a damp tea towel. I'm going to put it in my oven on the proof setting for 1 hour, and it should start rising. And in the meantime, I'm gonna hydrate the raisins, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna use the currants. I'm gonna taste them. I've had them a while. They've been vacuum sealed, but we'll taste them first just to make sure they're good. So, why did I put it in a different bowl? Y'all, for the life of me, I can't get this bowl off the base. And I'm like, how can that be? I mean, it is firmly stuck, and this bowl is made for this mixer, so it isn't like a random bowl. So I'll work on that while our dough rises. I am going to bring you back and just show you how we're going to hydrate and plump up our raisins, talk about how it's different than what the recipe says and why I'm doing something different, and why the colonial folks used what they used. Stay tuned. Ta-da! Y'all, I don't know why I couldn't get it off, but I couldn't. So I finally hugged it up and gave it a and it came off. I've never had it stick before. So one of the things I might do is like oil the base a little bit. But at any rate, let's talk about hydrating the fruit, what the pioneers, I guess you would call them, or the colonial time people. This was made popular in Hartford, Connecticut, by the way. They used brandy. And one of the reasons that they used brandy is because they wanted the cake to last a long time. So kind of think fruit cake. So it says, while the dough is rising, toss together 2 tablespoons of brandy with the raisins and cranberries in a small bowl. So what I've done is I put a teaspoon of orange extract, since we did not have the lemon. Wait, let me get tap water here. Whoops. Get just like a little dibble more. I'm sure it'll be fine. And I decided, I made the executive decision, because none of the recipes said currants, I'm going to use just straight up raisins. I love raisins anyway. So we need 2/3 cup of raisins. So let me grab that. Runaway raisins. And give them a little stir. And we're just going to let those set and absorb that flavor. Now it also calls for 1/2 cup of cranberries. So because of that, I guess I better add additional, where's my 1/2 cup? Here we go. I better add some additional raisins because you're looking for a total of 2/3 plus 1/2. Yum. Good. And if you had brandy extract, I'm sure you could use that. I personally hate the smell and the taste of liquor, and I don't want it in my cake. And that's just a me thing. I did find it interesting that even though the colonies were purists and a lot of things were taboo, they were using alcohol. But I guess if it's gonna bake out anyway, but I just found that interesting. So it says to cover and let it set until they're rehydrated. Mine are pretty hydrated, but we're gonna do that. I'm gonna let this rise for an hour. I'm gonna clean up some of this mess, and then we are going to do the final step of ingredient adding before it goes in for our baking. Look what I found in the pantry, in the long-term pantry. I found some cranberries. So I'm gonna add me some fruit, good. So I think that will kind of plump up. And the cranberries are more dried than the raisins. I'm just covering with some Glad Press and Seal. I'm gonna take a little rest, finish cleaning up the kitchen, and I'll see you back when the hour is elapsed. We have just under 20 minutes on our first rise. I believe this cake takes longer than all of those political ads we had to watch on YouTube. Oh my word, but that's okay. I have the day to do it. So the next step, once your raisins and cranberries have plumped up, and mine have, you want to go ahead and give them a bit of a stir. And then remember, we reserved that brown sugar and the flour. You want to add that in. So why would you put flour into the fruit? Well, it does really help it not to sink. And there's like no liquid. It has absorbed all of it. That way they won't just be at the bottom of the cake. They should be more evenly distributed. So then we're going to add some spices. So we need a teaspoon, quietly, of cinnamon. We need half of a teaspoon of ginger. That smells good. And then a quarter teaspoon each of ground allspice and ground cloves. And I am going to measure that, maybe, because I don't want it to be too overpowering, but yet, of course, you want it to be flavorful. I love cloves, so if I go a little over on the cloves, that would be fine. And we're going to stir all of that together. And once our first rise is complete, we'll be adding this fruit to the dough, and then we're going to let it rise for its second rise, but we'll talk about that when I come back. All right, y'all, first rise over. I haven't lifted the lid, so let's see what it looks like. So it hasn't really risen a lot, but maybe a little bit. Smells amazing. So our little fruit mixture we made up with our spices is the next that goes in. And what it says to do is to use a spatula to incorporate it. So just keep flipping it, you know, kind of over, woo, not like that, over. This is a very, very sticky dough. So it's kind of between a too soft bread and a batter. But you do want to try to get this, you know, really well mixed, or mixed well enough. And it did rise because I see that it's deflated a little bit as I've stirred it. So can you imagine the task? They paid someone in the town, and again, Hartford, Connecticut, to make this cake, paid for the ingredients. And I guess in today's economy, according to the video I watched, said it was about $1,500 worth of ingredients. This is a little more economical. It is a pretty dough. All right, I think we're pretty much there. That was not too hard to do. It's just very, very sticky. So we're going to go into the bundt pan. Scooch it back. So what I'm going to try to do is just go around the pan because it is so thick. It's not like pouring a cake batter. And just put even globs. And then when we get it all in, we'll smooth it out. I'll show you what it looks like. And then we go another hour and a half to let it rise again before we bake it. So, again, longer than some of the political ads YouTube played that you couldn't skip. Oh, my word. I mean, I do think voting as a citizen and making your voice heard is very important. And it is a right and a privilege granted to us, and so I'm not opposed to it. I just get tired of the mudslinging, and it's hard sometimes to know how much of this is true and how much isn't true. And we had a large battle for Congress in our state, so that was primarily what I was seeing on YouTube. But now we can start what I believe we should do, and that is to pray for all of the elected officials that they'll make good choices to support the citizens of this country and not make it about, I'm going to grab another spatula, who won, who didn't win, good, bad, or indifferent. So yeah, we'll use that for some spreading. So really, it's not too bad to handle. It's just very, very thick. It's even thicker than a fruitcake batter. There's a little hole there. I'm gonna have dishpan hands for this is all over with. I can smell the orange extract. You can add vanilla. I decided not to, since instead of the brandy or the alcohol, I used orange extract, and it can be, I don't want it to be overpowering with the taste of extract. I want to be able to taste this delicious spicy cake. And it kind of puts me in the mind of like an applesauce raisin cake, something on that order. So let's see. I think we are good to go. We need to recover it. And it says, cover with a clean kitchen towel and let rise until dough springs back. When you make a depression in it, about an hour and a half. I'll bring you back then. So you ready to see our cake after it's risen for an hour and a half? It's definitely risen quite a bit. And now we are going to bake it. It does not give a range of times. It just says 350 for 40 minutes. Because my oven has a tendency to be fast, I'm gonna check it at 30. Just to be safe, because I put all this effort in. You don't want to end up burning the cake, but I doubt it will be done then. So it's still pretty sticky, but it does spring when you touch it. So yeah, I've got my oven preheating, and I'll see y'all when it's all finished, and we will do a taste test. I'm hoping it'll be as good as I think it will be. The original recipe calls for a confectioner's sugar glaze with brandy and more spices. I'm not going to do that. Might sprinkle it with a little powdered sugar, but I'm not trying to see how much sugar I can consume. So, all right, guys, see you shortly. All right, y'all. It was a labor of love, but here we have it. Our vintage style election cake. It smells amazing. Now, I do have a convection oven, so I only cooked it for 35 minutes. Toothpick inserted, came out clean, and I opted for just a little powdered sugar. So it's still kind of warm, but you know, who doesn't like warm cake? It smells a lot like bread. That much, ooh, it's nice and soft. That much I can tell you. I wouldn't say, ooh, what kind of cake are you baking? Yeah, it smells a little more like bread. So let's give it a cut here. I'm making a huge mess on the countertop, which I'm glad you can't see. So I am just gonna have a little piece that I threw everywhere. You know, the first piece is always the ugly piece. My daddy, God rest his soul, he always wanted to eat the ugly cookie, the ugly piece. All right, y'all just excuse how the cut piece looks, but it definitely smells yeasty. I can smell the orange. So here we go. Let's take a bite. Wow, that is good. It puts me in the mind of a yeasty coffee cake. Not really a bread. Slightly sweet, but not super sweet. And if you think about it, this whole cake only had 1 cup of brown sugar. Now, you might be able to make it with Splenda, or if you use the erythritol version of artificial brown sugar. But since I've never made this before, I thought maybe I better follow the recipe. So, drop me a comment below. This took me 5 hours, approximately, maybe a little bit longer. Very delicious. I plan to share this with my neighbors. So I'm gonna let it cool completely because it's still a little bit warm, and then I'll wrap it airtight. It says that it can stay at room temperature for 3 days. I'll probably go ahead and refrigerate it since it does have butter and eggs and such in it. And who doesn't like cold coffee cake? I think the glaze would be really good too. It would be more like a Danish, I guess you would say, with a thick confectioner's icing, but that's not, I wanted to taste the actual cake, and I think it was well worth it. So let me know, what do you think? Would you spend 5 hours making an election cake? I can see so many applications for this, not only the regular general election, but maybe if you have children, young children or grandchildren that are having, you know, student council or homecoming queen and king elections. It might be a fun way for them to learn a little bit about history and taste something that's really good and not too terribly high in sugar. So do me a big favor, if you will, go ahead and smash that like button on your way out. And my plan at this point, y'all, you know, I always say this, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, is to be here on Saturday. I did finally get, not finally, I did get the sewing item that I've been waiting on. So we'll have that coming up. And I also have a very delicious recipe I wanted to share with you. I was gonna make it today, and then I decided, you know, I don't wanna wait too far past election to make the election cake. So well worth it. So I will see you all very soon, but until then, be healthy, be well, be blessed, and take care.